Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Roofr Report, brought to you by Roofr.com. All right, everybody, welcome to the Roofr Report. I am Pete McKendrick from Roofr, your host, and I am joined today by two good friends of mine and and industry experts, I would say, in the area that we're going to talk about today. Tech in your business, how you can use tech to improve your business, how it's going to help streamline your workflow. So I've got John Broche, John with Ugly Roof and Meredith Home Improvements. I would consider him more or less a wizard in this. Self-taught wizard, I guess, would be a good way of putting it. John has really mastered the use of tech and employing it throughout the workflow that they use every day. And today's going to talk a little bit about what they've seen, the improvements that they've seen in just their business based off of that. And then Aaron Trujillo from A True Consulting. Aaron is our CRM guru here and process flow guru. So really excited to have you guys both. I'll give you guys just a quick second here to kind of throw some background at us and tell us, how you got to where you're at in this industry. And then, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I've been in the roofing industry my whole life. I'm a Jimmy Buffett song, like tell everybody, right? I'm a son of a roofer. So roofing's kind of in the blood, but So the conversation today with tech, it's fun to have this conversation because I've seen things change and just in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. 10 years ago, you were looking at, small CRMs and just trying to go from paper to that. And it's just cool to see the transition of where we're at now, where you have a fully automated process that'll allow you more freedom in your work day and, that type of thing. So.
Absolutely right. That's where most industries are just always trying to innovate, and there's fun tools always coming our way. It's basically what I try to help connect roofers and contractors to. It's like I typically just help them innovate and kind of connect their daily processes over into the digital world and help actually educate to say that you can do everything that you're doing on paper, everything that you're doing manually, and we can find a tool that can digitize that, which ultimately assists growth and scaling because you're no longer having to be in one set area to do your business. You can literally go anywhere and have a pretty quick setup once you are out there in these other these other markets as you want to grow. Because you don't have to have this massive infrastructure of filing cabinets and all that. You can literally, if it's done really well, you can plug and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things to note today, just what I've seen in the short number of years that I've been on this side of things, out of the field and more on the SaaS side of things, is the amazing amount of technology that's come into this market just in the last couple of years. I think that we started off, like John said, with some very simple CRMs and very limited choices. And we've kind of exploded here, right? Like we have so many options now. If I'm a new roofer or a small roofer coming into this industry or fairly new to the industry, I think it can be overwhelming, right? Like I think it can be an overwhelming process, to pick which ones are the best options here and what do I need and what do I not need? What is a necessity and what is, kind of a bells and whistles thing. And, what do your guys' take on that? John, I know you've probably employed the most of most roofers that I know, as far as technology platforms go and leveraging those. What are your thoughts of what are kind of the essentials, right? Like what are the things that I would absolutely want to have, if I'm let's say a pen and paper guy?
If you're coming out of the caveman days, as I call them, right, with pen and paper, the first thing you got to do is have a good with a CRM. Like you got to have a way to just track data, and that's the way I look at that. Is you're tracking data. It's not really that you're trying to do other things and all the frills and the fun stuff. You just need to track data. One, just to help you kind of focus on what's going on in the business. What jobs are profitable, what jobs aren't. Going from a lead to a prospect into a job into production. Being able to track data and keep everything stored in one place, in my mind, is the first step. So if you think of it this way, of having your desktop, right? It's just kind of like when about the computers and microprocessors, right? What you're trying to do is you're taking that paper file and making it digital. That's all we're trying to do, and that way you can track that. So now, freedom wise for a roofing contractor is like, if a homeowner calls you, like, you don't have to go to the office to pull a file out, right? To be like, hey, yeah, we did your roof 3 years ago. Let me send the guy out there. So it gives you a lot of freedom to work from anywhere in the world. That's the main thing, I think. Like, that's the first powerful step, I think, is to be able to give yourself some freedom with that. Once you step past that, it's more about how do you make the business better, and how do you make things shorter, faster, quicker with integrations and other tools and that type of thing. That's kind of where I would start the conversation at.
Yeah, I think that plays right into, Aaron, what you kind of specialize in is the CRM portion of it, right? And taking a business that maybe is using a smaller CRM or a limited CRM, and really maximizing the use of that CRM, or possibly a new CRM, right? And speak to the, how important that CRM is to have that set up and set up correctly, right? And I think that's a big part of it too. You said something a long time ago to me in a webinar that really struck a chord, is like, you look at their production first, right? You look at their production process and then you work backwards. And I think so many times people think like, oh, I got to find a CRM that's going to work, efficiently with my sales process, or it's going to really focus on the sales end of my business, when you're saying you got to actually work the other way, right? Because if the production end of it is not functioning the way it should, that process is not sound. You're just, creating a backlog, more or less, right? A log jam for the sales team. So, I guess speak to a little bit to what you see are, you know, the hurdles that people have to get over when adopting a CRM, what to look for in a CRM, right? So that I can find one that's a best fit, because, obviously there's some choices out there now, and it's not a one size fits all, right? So, like, what are the things that I'm looking for to really like make that CRM fit my business?
Yeah. I kind of want to go off of a little bit of what John was saying, is looking for a good CRM, or basically a place where you want to start collecting data is really important. But I think as far as, that's what you would talk to owners about, like getting in the CRM, and this is where what's the best tool to collect the data and get things in with the mindset of who is actually gathering that data. What are the best tools of gathering? So your sales guys are the ones gathering that data. So being able to find tools that, one, you have a catcher, you just need a good system to be the pitcher. And if you don't, it's not going to make sense. Clients today, a lot of them actually, that's where the mind goes into. I need a data collector, a good data collector. But say I need the sales guys to find it really simple for me to get that data in there, especially when we're dealing with paper, which the real truth is that gathering data is a really big challenge, because you want to just get the bare minimum so we can get into production. And when a company needs data, you need to find a way to get it. And the simplicity of the programs that you use on the outside gets that data in, and the redundancy for that. And like you said, with production, I absolutely, that is a tool that, in my experience, the companies that work best, that are growing the best, are when they have their production lined up. When they have their production on it, even in a paper world, and their production is solid, adding technology, there's a bump in the road to learn that. But if it's simple and is very clear of what that production is, when that's flowing, as we taught, when that's flowing, I can tell my sales guys, go ham, get as many jobs as possible, And then my collections are better because I'm pushing that information through. The faster we get to completion, the faster we can get to that final check, right? So that's kind of what I look at, and what I think all contractors need to look for in a system is taking care of that production, making sure that the data is coming in simply. And that could be very simplified, like systems that will maybe not be part of that CRM, but a really good system that helps your salesman provide that data into the system. Then within an actual CRM, allow it to kind of think about what's your process. Is this something that am I making that decision? And is my process just, crap? I don't know, and I'm just kind of reacting to everything. Then yeah, there's options out there for you to plug and play. It's like, okay, this is set for me. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to just use it, whatever they tell me, because I'm kind of just flying by the was it just yeah, I can't think of the word, but flying by the seat of my pants here. Or I've been doing this for a while. Going to a system that kind of tells me what to do, not going to work for me. So they're going to need more customization on how can I take my process, make as little adjustments for now, because I kind of go in like, what can I give you that I can foundationally build into where this is my process now. I would like to continue to do this as close as possible, but I need to digitize it. That's all I want to do right now. That's usually my goal is like, okay, great. Let's get you into a system. So at least you're digitizing. So at least you're getting all this data into one place. Then most of these systems have lots of bells and whistles or lots of things that make your process and your growth better. Then we can start applying easily these better practices and kind of creating a better flow through the system to make that happen. So those are things I really think you always keep in mind when you're selecting CRM. You have the owner and they have the owner hat on and they have their ideal of what they need, but we have to think about who is putting the data in, what's your process on the outside, and how can we find a system that's going to best utilize all the departments, so that ultimately, if you do that, the owners and the interested parties can get what they want without a lot of fight in trying to gather data. I just have a lot that this is what I want right now, and I have to explain like, well, we can't because I don't have I can set reports up all day long. If I don't have data, that's a really pretty piece of paper. It's a really cool looking piece of paper is all it is. So that's usually what I talk to them about. They think, oh, I should have all these numbers. Not if they're on paper, not if they're somewhere all over the place on a Google sheet somewhere. Sure, we can do some importing, but you're still you're relying on what the people that are pushing the data are actually getting. And if it's just, I think this is what they want. Me personally, I want these numbers, but this guy wants these numbers and the boss wants another. Those are things we have to put all together, make it simple and make it redundant for sure.
Now, John, I want to ask you, because I think that you guys were one of the earliest to really like go full bore into employing tech, right? I think that you guys took that leap of faith probably earlier than most in this industry and really embraced it and have shown the dividends of doing that. And I want to talk, I guess, a little bit, like I said, if I'm maybe a small guy and I'm new to it, maybe I'm hesitant, or maybe I'm a traditional guy. Like maybe I've been in business a long time. I've been doing it the pen and paper way, and it's not broken. It's just not super efficient. What made you guys decide, what did you guys look at and what made you guys decide like, hey, we need to go this route. Like we need to use tech because it's going to do X for our business.
So, I mean, there's a couple of things there. The main thing's freedom. Being able to not be chained to an office, right? So like our office is actually tiny, but nobody works in it. So everybody that works in our company, and we've got 25 employees now, they all work mobile and remote, and it keeps your overhead down. So even though you're spending more money on tech, you're actually spending less money on overhead, right? So that's one of the main things there. And the other part is just the transparency of being shorter, faster, quicker, right? So I learned that in the military: shorter, faster, quicker. You want to try to find a straight line approach to everything you can. Like watching basketball the other night, and I'm sitting there going, "Man, that guy's getting straight line drived on, right? Because he's not stepping over." But that's the most effective way to get anywhere is in a straight line, right? And the faster that you can do that, the more efficient you are, and the better the customer service is, and the better life that you have. I mean, as far as like it all kind of circulates back to freedom on the owner. One thing that I learned over my last, I don't know, 20 years with this is, well, I mean, in the tech space, it's probably 10 years, but the one thing that I've learned is we have three things that we can give, right? It's time, treasure, and talent. The most important is time. So most of us trade our time for treasure, right? That's what we're doing. I go to work, they pay me to go to work, and I'm basically exchanging my time for treasure. When you're able to really implement the correct tech and have the right process and whiteboard it out and get somebody like Aaron to really just lay it out for you, um, now you're trading time for time. Right. So now it's a new trade in my mind of like I'm trading time for time instead of time for money. Right. Because now this is doing a lot of the intermediate tasks or stuff that I could have hired people out and recruit, hire, train. And it's not that I'm anti people. I mean, I mean, we've got a big staff. I love people. The more automations I have, the more that they don't have to do data entry. Right. I mean, that was my big kick this year was to go to zero data entry, which is impossible. But I tried to get as much of that as possible. So on the lead and marketing side, now I'm down to like there's 7 to 10% of data entry because I've integrated with, with LSAs and everything that Google has and everything that Facebook has and everything that everybody has, right? And in my mind, that's freedom. And when you can help your people work better and focus on the tasks that need to happen, which is the customer and the relationships. In my mind, that's the most important part is getting to that freedom part and trading time for time. Because when we get stuck in that rut of, actually, I had this conversation last night, and I'll bring it up because I was talking to a guy. I was like, he goes, he's going to leave his job. He's a good friend of mine. And we started talking. He's like, the guy just micromanages me. And so we started breaking that down as his friend. I'm like, listen, like, do you know why people micromanage? Right? He's like, well, I don't know. It's like, because they don't have a macro. They don't have a big picture. They don't have a process. Right? And it comes down to trust. So when you think about an owner, well, I can't hire somebody because I don't trust anybody. That's usually the biggest barrier to entry to growing and scaling a business. It's like they can go to that $1 to $2 million spot and do everything in the business, but they don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody, right? But I trust the process and the systems you put in place. And once you're able to have the micromanagement part, the micro process, as far as I call it, right? It's when it's in play and it flows. I mean, I had COVID and I was pretty bad sick and I was off for 8 weeks and the company ran itself. Like I come back and I'm like, man, everybody's still here. The place didn't blow up, right? So that's the main thing that I found in it is just you don't have to micromanage anybody anymore. Like it does it itself, right? You're training people and personalities then at that point, and you give that freedom to your employees to actually do the fun part of their job, which is talking to customers and actually getting work done. I mean, that would be my answer to that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good segue, Aaron, into a conversation I think that you and I've had before. But talk about the importance of understanding what your process is. I think so many times you find, right, you get into these conversations with these owners that are like, yeah, I want to employ a CRM, but when you start to dive into it, and I used to, in my past life when I worked for CRM, we'd get into the same conversation. Let's lay out your flow. And you find that they don't even really know what their flow is, right? Like it's very tough for them to really like have a good understanding of what they're trying to accomplish and what steps are involved in that, right?
Right. Yeah. It's usually getting comfortable reaction. And that's typically what I found. They've gotten real comfortable reaction and wonder at the end of the day why they're so stressed and overwhelmed. And even when it's great,
Great.
right? It's when then just work is just flowing and just coming in. They find themselves very stressed and very overwhelmed and should be like, man, this is such a great thing. But it's because it's all reaction. It's this comes in, okay, I got to do this. This comes in, I got to do this. Why isn't everybody on the same page as me? Why isn't everybody working as hard as I am? Why isn't everybody running as fast as I am? Because this is what we're looking for. This is what we want. We want all this work, but nobody. It's because they're like, well, what do I do first? What do you need from me? Where a lot of times that's where I find a lot of contractors, when you try to implement a system, they fall right back into that because that's what they know. They're like, I don't want to learn this new thing. I get it. It's gonna be better for me, but I have to get to work. I don't have time, right? Because they're reacting. They're used to that reaction, and that's what I find it's the process. It's oversight, like John says, having that oversight. When they're a CRM, that's a huge thing. You're not relying on your salespeople to, like, in that manner, to tell you, follow the process. Like you said, John, you trust the process. And that doesn't have to be CRM. That's the best way in CRMs. Digitizing is the best way to follow a process because we build it out so that the system's telling you what you need to do next. So it's easily adopted. If the system's telling you, it's very simple. Oh, cool. I'm just going to send that in. I don't have to think about those things that I had to before and be reactionary. And I see it all the time. And that's the biggest, benefit of that happens with it. It's like when something comes in, their brain's not going, oh my God, what do we do? What's the things that we need? Do we have signs? Do we have contracts? Do we have all this? Are we ready for this? What's going on? Instead, they're relying. Okay, system says, here's my Helm maps. Here's my thing. All right, we're going to go to this area. It's easier to kind of collaborate and become a team and have a culture there and work on that culture, because the system, I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday as I'm going to do today, because it's already set. I need to take my talents out there and do what I do best and what I love doing. I don't have to worry about what's the first thing I need to do. And I get to look at it more strategically. I'm like, oh my God, we got to go. I think this neighborhood here, no, it's just systematically once it's set, but we can't build a system without a process, period. We can put stuff in there that seems nice, that makes sense, but that's why I look for things like, okay, what's your process first? Let's lay it out. It's always, when you get explained, it's the same. Well, sales guy goes out, gets pictures, gets signature. We do all this stuff. We put it we get the folder into our admin, into the office. They go through, if they have a system, they put it in, they verify it. We talk back and forth to the salesman about 100 times to make sure that we have everything right. So he's going back and forth. Now we're getting into production. Production's trying to figure it out, doing the same thing, going back to salesman. What is this? Did you mean this? So they're spending a couple days on one file, 3 days on one file, just to get it to a point where they can schedule, like get materials and schedule. I have them walk me through that. I have them tell me exactly what that looks like. A lot of times they sit there and I can watch their face. Why they're like, oh, okay. Like, I hear it now. I'm seeing what I'm doing. And so now we're like, all right, let's kind of see. And systematically, I can take that and visualize it. We can start working through that. And it seems to work. I mean, obviously, the process, it's pretty quick, I'm sure. And it when you go into and you see it really quick, you're like, oh, wow, you're just kind of, when something, you're treating everything micromanagely. You're going into like, what do I do in this one job? Let me see what kind of nails they're using on this roof, because I want to make sure that I get that right fit, and see, it's like that detail that they feel like they have to get, because it's reactionary. They don't want to miss anything. When we can bring them back up and look at a process, I tell them 85, 90% of the time, if we can get all your jobs 90% of the time through the system like that, you're only dealing with the 10% of the things that go wrong. And they really are wrong, right? They're really something, they're special. So now you can devote more time, not 100 jobs are special. These ones are special that I need. And it's not because our system's broke, it's because this is an anomaly. Let's get down to the anomalies so I can focus my time on those. So that's kind of how, with a process wise, when they start seeing that and seeing their own process, it's really kind of, it's fun for them to kind of manipulate that and see, oh, wow, this makes sense. I'm not in here anymore. I'm here. And then I'm using this for the true expertise and talent that I have that makes me uniquely great. That makes sense?
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
going to build on that, Pete. I was going to build on that. So
Yeah.
if that's okay, so like Aaron said something great in there too, and then I verbalize it in a slightly different way. But like whenever I'm coaching and trying to help guys, I I put it as, because they say, well, I don't even know what my process is. I said, well, then take a month and do this. Just
Mm.
take every step of the way, do it, document it, delegate it. Right? If you can do it and you know what to happen, document it. Write down each step. I don't care how minuscule it looks. You're building that with that micromanagement, that microprocessor to put into the system later. But do it, document it, and delegate it. Because once you've done it and you've documented it, you know what it looks like, and it's easier to delegate. And it's just like Aaron said, as long as you can run 90 to 95% of all the work through there, now you're just dealing with variables, and those variables are a lot easier to deal with. I mean, we'll probably do 500-600 roofs, right? So if I've got to deal with 10 people, that's great. Like I'm happy with that. Like my process is working. My people are happy. My homeowners are happy. I'm going to have 10 people. Heck, that's less than 5%. I'm happy, right?
Mm.
You know what I mean? So that's the way that I look at those things is, but guys don't know where to start a lot of times. They're just like he said. They're just, because they're doing everything, and I think there's ego involved too, because they think that nobody can do it as well as them. And you know what? I agree as far as a passion as an owner, right? I mean, you got a lot at stake here. But at the end of the day, if you don't do it, document it, and delegate it, and that's the thing I keep putting into the guys' heads is like, you have to go do it, document it, and delegate. I don't care if you like it or not. Like I hate QuickBooks. I hate the back end bookwork of the process. So what did I do the last 3 years? I've taken QuickBooks lessons. I've been on webinars. I'm trying to learn as much as I can so I can systematize my whole process to where I don't have to deal with it. I can hire that out, right? I hire out a week. So, but until you get to that point to where that you understand that you have a strength and a weakness, and then you do it, document and delegate it, like it's really hard for guys to overcome and go to another level. Like they're always going to be stuck in that airplane mode of just circling the runway of $1 million to $1.5 million, because they're trying to do everything and they have that ego. Just get the ego out of the way, man. Document what you're doing. Do what's better for the people around you. Hire people that you can change their life, right? So that was our focus. Was my infrastructure build wasn't on a huge office and these big jacked up trucks. Like we got these little mini vans and everybody works from home, but I pay my people more. I have health insurance. I can afford 401k. So I'm creating a better experience for all my other people that are that are on the team, because we were able to systematize everything, right? So now I'm saving money on overhead, but I'm paying our people a lot bit better. And that's the catalyst to everything, is being able to have people. And if you don't have time to focus on people because you're focusing on the business, your business is going to fail.
You can't scale yourself.
You can't scale yourself, man. It's impossible.
Yeah, I remember a conversation that you and I had once, John, and we were talking about, how streamlined things that, you guys have been able to make things. And we talked about, how you needed less employees, right? And it really struck me at that point, because you said, yes, could I have less employees? Sure. But instead of just saying like, oh, I'm saving money because I need less people, you said I took that money and I put it back into the business to make the quality of life better for the employees that I did have.
Yes.
And that really hit a chord with me. I was like, man, like what a great concept here. Like, yes, it's making us more organized. It's making us more efficient, which obviously in the long run is going to require less people, but reinvesting that time and energy into the people that we do have just improve the culture of your company probably tenfold. Right. And then that, like you said, you can't always necessarily trust people, but you start to get people that are much more loyal, that are much more, involved in the process, that are much more champions of your business because you're taking care of them. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge piece. I think that sometimes that's missed. Like we're just looking a lot of times just at the bottom line number. Hey, I can save some money here by putting a process in play. But, obviously putting that process in play for you guys and adding that tech to the process changed the whole culture of your company. Right. And I want you to talk just really quick about adoption. Like, how hard was it to get your team to adopt tech? Right. Because I know traditionally that's one of the biggest things I always hear. Oh, my sales guys won't do this. Oh, they don't want to learn something new. They like the way they do it now. Right. So I think that that's one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of owners run into is you've got this group of people. They're very set in the way they're doing it. In their mind, things are not necessarily broken. How do we convince them to say, this is a better way, right? This is ultimately going to make your life easier. It might not seem like that right now because it's something brand new, and you don't understand exactly how it's going to work. But for you guys, how did adoption go? Was it tough at first? Did you guys, were you able to show the benefits to the team? I know you guys are big on training constantly, right? And, so I guess speak to the way that you guys were able to get the adoption and get the people on board, right?
So I use the 21 and 75 method. That's what I call it. So after 21 days, it becomes a habit. After 75 days, it becomes a lifestyle, right? So when you look at it that way, so your first 21 days are the most challenging thing on anything that you do. So when you're adopting a new process or a new this, it's about incremental change. You can't just come in and say, we're switching everything and you're starting over right this moment. Like it's be very, very hard. So you literally have to structure it out. So like I'm working on a new system now that we're going to implement in February. So I've already got it laid out. I've got it documented. I know what I want it to look like. And one thing that I learned a long time ago is to help your people adopt it better is it's phrasing. Words mean something, right? So when I bring it to the team, like, all right, guys, I've got a cool idea that I want to experiment with, right? Because when I say I want to experiment, let's try this out. Give me your feedback, what's working, what's not. When they're a part of the process, they dive in deeper to try to figure out. They want to adopt it, right? Because like I'll say, here's my hypothesis on it. I think it's going to do this, this, and this, and this. Well, what do you guys think? Well, let's try this experiment, right? And so one thing about saying I'm trying an experiment is now it's not like you're going to do the process and this is what it is. Now I actually see what their actual mentality is, right? How they respond in it. And if it fails, guess what? It was an experiment. They're not mad at me now, right? You know what I mean? I'm not the leader that drove them down a path that had them fail. Now it's, hey, we're doing this together. And the adoption process is a lot of that. Like I give everything 21 days, right? Whatever I put it into play, I measure it, test it, watch it, get feedback, call the guys, call the staff and say, how's this working? What's some bottlenecks that you see? Anything that I do. And then if it's working, I keep on going. And then from day 21 to 75, we're tweaking it, man. We're just trying to make it better. Because once it becomes day 75, and this is, I mean, there's a lot of psychology that'll show this, but it becomes a lifestyle at that point, right? So it's incremental change. It's 1% every day. You can't just go in there and overwhelm people who've done something a certain way for so long. So you just got to slowly change things. I mean, it took me 2 years whenever I came here as a partner with Ty, with 2.5 years now to get that slow incremental change. And we had a great team, and we still have a great team. But like we went from I called it a shotgun approach, right? Where that's what I've always called it is where you come in, you drop a folder off, everybody's at the office, the production manager's trying to figure out what it was. He's going and trying to find pictures instead of having a way to document all that stuff. He's trying to find this. He's trying to find the contract. He's trying to put it together. Like he's spending an hour on one folder when he can do it in 5 minutes now, right? He pulls it up. Okay, here's the contract. Here's the color. Here's what the pictures look like. All that stuff is annotated, ready to go. Okay, we're putting ridge vent in here. We're doing that. Like the process is so fast and simple now that the production end, like it just runs itself almost. So like it used to be when I looked at balances of pay, right? When I say that of like the AR, it used to be like we shot for 85% of sales each month to build. Now I'm looking for 95 and 100%. Like my guys are selling it and we're getting it done in 2 weeks, right? Because and we're collecting it within a day or two. Like my AR, like we had a conversation with another coach the other day, and she was like, "What's your average time?" I'm like, 4 days. Like that's my AR time because we're so effective all the way through that we collect it right at the end of the job. She's like, most guys' averages are over 30 days, of AR. I'm like, we don't have AR. Like we collect as we go because the process is there because everybody hit the right steps. So it's just about implementation. So the implementation is incremental change, right? 21 and 75. That's why that's that whole 75 hard um, uh, competition thing that they have, right? Because 75 days is when you break your mentality that now it's a lifestyle.
That's awesome. I love that. How often do you see, I mean, I'm sure, Aaron, along the same lines, I'm sure you run into resistance here when you're implementing some of this stuff, and how do you guys overcome that, and how do you change that mindset when you're in there, training a company, and working on their flow and how they're going to adopt, a new CRM or some new software into their platform?
Oh man, it's every single company. Every single one of them, you have resistance no matter what. Change is hard, period. You have a dreamer typically that's like, this is everything I want. I really know what I want. And you have different companies that, like, I think it's awesome, John, that you have this great culture that you have. And that's so important for adoption as well. If you're a good leader and you have a good culture, your guys are going to follow you wherever. Because they're already invested in you, in the company, in all those things. And so they're like, all right, you've never steered me wrong before, and when you do, you own it. So we trust you. My experience is that's not what I come up with, right? That's not the people that I'm talking to. I'm talking to people that are completely lost. They probably have culture issues. They probably doing this thing the same way. They have guys coming in and out because that's just the nature of the business in some of parts of the business. And depending on how you're selling and what you're providing the service for. So adoption can be really, really challenging. And I think on my part, what I try to talk to is like, listen, I hate that I have to go this route, but sometimes with that situation, it's like, listen, where you talk about ego, you're probably going to lose some guys. They're probably going to not want to be here. You're going to have a lot of pushback. You're going to have guys that are going to tell you, or folks that are going to tell you, this doesn't work. I don't like it. This is never going to work. There's going to be all that. So adoption wise goes into where's the work going to? Like, okay, first thing, Mr. Owner, you have to believe it, and you have to be, because you're the leader. You're the guy they're looking to. So you have to be the one that is going to drive this. There's a reason why they're coming to working for you. You might find typically it's, you pay me fast, right? I don't have to, my production's pretty nicely, but it's going through, I'm getting work done. And then the last thing you have, like so many contractors can do that. Those two things, pay and produce, right? Then you're left with culture. How do I get to that piece, right? I have to give them a tool that allows them to put more into production faster so they can get paid more. So adoption wise, that's kind of where you have to look at, like, how is this system benefiting them? But if you don't have ownership on all things, that doesn't work. If production allows things to come through because they don't want to follow the process, you're not changing anything there. You're still gumming up the system. That overwhelm is still there. You're not getting to that collections faster. Boss man believes in it, but comes down and is like, why aren't we doing this? So very much agree with small changes. That's what I call my stuff is the very first part of it is foundations. Let's identify your foundations. Let's mirror that. Let's put it in the situation where you can see it. That's so big. They don't see it when they're doing it all the time. They're reacting, oh, If I can get them to see, everybody sees, then we can start working with something there. They're actually doing the same thing they've been doing. They're just putting it to somewhere else. They're waking up in the morning and not figuring out how am I going to get to the office to put my files together so I can get in production. Oh, I just go here. That's really simple. I'm spending an hour and a half in the morning doing this, and then I get to spend 8 hours a day doing what I love doing. Getting them there is tough. That's the tough. The change is hard, and adoption is in time. I typically, in my experience through this process for the last few years, is if the contract or the company comes in and I get this, just tell me what to do. I have no idea. Just lay it out for me. What do I need? They are ready because there's been a rock bottom situation. That's how I look at it. They've hit the bottom. They know they're losing money now. They're not selling as much. They're losing sales guys. They can't keep people on staff. They're absolutely done. They know where they want to be, and they're willing to be like, listen, just tell me what to do and we'll do it. The others are trying to break down that process and figuring out like, okay, and I tell them this is going to be a year. Like I start with that. It's going to take a good year for everybody to adopt this. And this is the challenges you're going to go through, and clockwork. And it's like, it's clockwork. When we tell them, it's like, okay, they're first excited. Owner's really excited because they're looking at it like, oh man, concept is beautiful, right? Concept is like, oh, this looks exactly like I want it to be. But actually going in and starting to do it, that's where the real challenges are, especially when you have old school guys, you have the brand new guys. And what I found in the adoption, the really quick way to adopt is that all your new guys know no other system but this one. When those new guys, this has been my experience personally when I working for another roofing company, is the guys that were the $1 million sales guys, the big guys that are keeping most of them are keeping the lights on, keeping the company growing, right? They had the biggest pushback because at that level, their process is pretty locked in if they're doing $1 million a year. You know what I mean? They're locked in. They don't. It's hard to change over to a new system. But then these new guys coming in, and they start learning only this, and then they see and I'm working with them on what's broken. I'm working with them because they're actually in it. I get to have that relationship with them. That, oh man, you're giving me feedback. Let's kind of make this better. And working with the owner, those type of things, I'm working it better while these guys continue on their process. Well, what happens is these new guys start posting numbers on the board. They start killing it, right? So now their board is like, and these guys over here is like, 1 second. What is this, right? What are these numbers? How are they getting here when they're barely learning? They're just selling out there. They don't know the components. They don't know what I know. So then finally, some of them, they're like, screw this. I'm going somewhere else because I want to keep doing what I want to do. And turns out most of these guys, they've probably been a problem for many years, and you've had to babysit them for the last 3 or 4 years. Great. And you're only, you can't justify like letting them go because they're bringing so much revenue in. So you kind of give them a lot of passes. Now you change, they make that decision for you. And then you get the guys, of course, I would have like a Tuesday meeting where sales guys would come in and I would show them system. We get down. And at first it was all the new guys. That was the training process. All the guys were on board with the tech. They were in there. They were doing more jobs, more work. They would come like, man, I've done more jobs in the last 3 months than I've done my entire career. Right. Finally, these other guys have been doing it. They're already winning in this situation before the system. They start seeing that. And some of them that, the light goes on like, wait, if I've been doing $1 million a year with the old system and these guys are doing this much, wait, I've got both things. I've been doing this for a while and now I have a system that I can double. I can double what I'm doing, but we have to get there. And so adoption wise, that's what I found works best, especially in a competitive environment, no matter what you're going to end, and John, sure, it's like you're always going to have competition. It's beautiful. It's a great thing for yourself. So you have that healthy competition. As you have that, you work with those both sides and intent and putting it out there and saying, hey, this is going to be, it's change. No matter what change you're going through, you're going to lose some people. You're going to gain. You're going to find out. Some of these guys are really awesome, and you didn't even know their name. And all of a sudden, you're giving them the tool that they've been needing their entire time to succeed. And you're going to get a lot of, going around the process. And that's where it comes back to the owner the production manager has to believe in it, because they need to be able to push back. They need to be able to say, it's not in the system. Get back to the gatekeeper. You need to go through this. I was a gatekeeper. So many people, because I made sure, because I would believe in the system. I believed that we can do more work, because I believed in that. We had to follow that process. That's what was working. The ones that went around the process gummed up the system. So these 5 guys that did the right thing are now waiting for this guy that went around, if not everybody's on board. But if you have people on board and they push back, I know that's kind of a different way of going about it. But if the process is right, the systems are right, and all that kind of stuff, now as a company, I can really work on culture, because that's the only differentiator now, right? The only differentiator from the guy down the street is my culture, because the guy down the street could be doing the same thing I'm doing, the paper, all that. You add tech, and then you can start working on culture. Then you can get to a point where John, that's so awesome that you have that. It's you don't hear that a lot, that you have like, hey, let's be part of the process. I do that. We're all part of this process. But with some of these guys I'm getting that come in, they're just, I don't know what to do anymore, and I'm losing guys. I need some kind of foundational start so that I can start building this up, and I can get people in there.
Yeah, one thing that I want to talk about, I think, is a factor that gets missed so often in this. And John, I think that you guys have really mastered it, to be honest. I love the process that you guys have put into play, is the customer side of this, right? Like, tech has done so much internally for our companies, right? It's allowed us to be cleaner. It's allowed us to be more organized. It's allowed us the flexibility to work from wherever we need to. But one of the things that tech has done is it allowed us to completely change the customer experience. And like, I know some of the things that, you and I have looked at some of the things that you're doing, John. And it just amazes me at how you guys have created this like world-class customer experience situation, and I think that's huge, right? In a day and age where, we have so much, we have such an educated buyer right now. And it's so easy now for me to, find out information on a company, to, go to their website, to go to their Google reviews, right? So I'm much more savvy when I'm buying, I think, so that, customer experience is much, much more impactful, I think, than it was before, when, it might just be me referring you to some friends of mine or something like that. It's a much wider reach now for me as a customer. A bad review can go a long way on Google, right? So, speak to the fact that, how you guys have used tech to really bring the homeowner in and really improve how they're involved in the process. Like you said, it kind of made the light bulb go off for me when you said, we're collecting our AR in like 4 days, you know what I mean? But that's because of how involved the customer is in the process, right?
Yeah. So, in today's time of instant gratification, right, you have to put your pulse on what's going on right now. How do you buy, right? If you want to order dinner, what do? You go to the app, you go to DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever, and I order it. And then this has been a good thing, right? Because now it's instant gratification. I'm looking at, okay, my meal will be here at 12:03. Well, 12:02, I start looking at my app again, right? And then if it's 12:05, so there's negative sides too. At 12:05, I'm like, man, they're 2 minutes late, right? So you have positives and negatives. I call it the DoorDash effect, that we created. But so we teamed up with Get the Referral and made our own app too. And that really helped because now it's integrated in with Job Nimbus as well with the CRM. And when it hits certain stages, it just updates them. Boom, your project is getting the permit pool. Boom, your project is ready to schedule. Boom, we just scheduled your project. So we're doing that. Adoption rate of the app is about 65%, which is actually pretty good, I think. I mean, I want to get 100, but I think we're like 60 to 65%. But for the ones that don't adopt the app, we're still sending out automated text messages, ringless voicemails, right? So once it hits a certain stage in the in the process, we're sending out a voicemail, and it's me going, "Hey guys, this is John, one of the owners here. Appreciate your all's business, blah blah blah. It looks like that we got your project over here into the production side. Andy will be reaching out soon. Like I make it as personal as possible. Like I literally just pick up the phone to call them, and that's been huge. Like our cancellation rates are way down, right? But because we don't get money down. So that was always a challenge is I don't get any money down. How do I keep somebody here if my schedule's 3 to 4 weeks out? Another guy comes in, gives them a price that's $3,000 lower. They forgot about value and they call in and want to cancel, right? So that's the negative side to no money down is cancellation rates. So our cancellation rates are down to under 3% because of the communication. Like they don't want to talk to anybody else. I send them a text message. I send them an email. We try to figure out what their love language is, right? And so I can set up automations to even send them Facebook messages. Like if they want to talk in Facebook, we just hit it and it goes to Facebook Messenger. Like all their communication from that point forward is in Facebook Messenger. And it's automated. And so you find out what their love language is. Like if they want the phone calls, if they're going to look at the app, if they're going, and that's a complicated process to try to figure out. But with the right integrations, the right teams, the right stuff, you can just click a button and now everything is Facebook Messenger and it's all coming back into the system, right? So there's so many different. I mean, there's a plethora of veins that you can go down of how people communicate. So I was thinking about it here. It's like, one of our staff is like, well, I'm trying to call and set appointments and nobody answers the phones. And I was like, man, I got just so frustrated. Like I got in the frustration part of it, and then I was sitting there on the couch, and a guy called me. Like, I'll call him back later, right? And then I forgot to call him back. So we live in the same time. So put your pulse on what's going on. Understand that people live in a different time now. So believe it or not, we set a lot of appointments in text messages. People, that's how we communicate now. Because like we're in a podcast right now. I've got 3 or 4, text messages and or phone calls, and I've texted back and said, hey, I'll call you back after this meeting, right? And then I might or might not call them back because I might or might not remember, right? So that's the thing is like, you have to meet people where they're at, right? The app has been huge for us, just with the transparency and the clarity, because we put all of our pictures in there as well. Their documents go in there. And that again is like when we talk about adoption to tech, it's even harder on the consumer side than what it is inside of your own company. So I've got to give the customer a reason to want to download our app. I thought at first, oh man, it's cool. We got an app. Everybody will want to download it to see what's in there. No, it's like you literally got to pull them along by, hey, your pictures will be in there. Hey, your proposal will be in there. Hey, all the documents will go in there. All of your, contracts will go in there. Hey, we put the warranty in there. Like I got to give them a reason to have the app in the first place. And then the whole purpose of the app is to get a referral out of it, right? And that's kind of what the whole basis of it is then I want them to share and, and bring in referrals and watch the referral stuff build inside the app. But the adoption of it was the hardest part. So getting the customer to adopt. But again, that's that experience, right? So like right now, like Amazon is the biggest corporation in the world, and I don't like ordering there, but it's so easy and convenient because the way my lifestyle is, right? That I'm going to go into the app and I'm going to order at Amazon or I'm going to go to Instacart, right? Like Instacart was the best thing whenever I was sick because I couldn't go to the grocery store. But I could go there and I could shop, and they would show up and drop it off at my doorstep. And so it's that mentality, like, man, like that's where we're at in life is, and again, guys, it comes down to what I said before too, is trading time for time. Like, so me and my wife were sitting there thinking, like, we enjoy going to the grocery store, but a lot of times it's me or her that goes. right? So this just this one little tech product like Instacart, right? That's 3 hours of getting in the truck, going to the grocery store, picking everything out, putting it back in the truck, unloading it, putting it back in the house. Well, we cut 2 hours of time out of that. So now we're trading time for time. And so, like what Aaron said earlier about guys that are frustrated and, like, I'll do anything, just help me. Like, these guys are in a relationship spot in their marriage, you know, in their friendships and all the stuff where it's just breaking down because they don't know how to transfer time for time. And that's
Mhm.
all that customer experience is supposed to be. I don't want my customer to have to spend time calling me saying, when are you showing up to do my job? That's when they're frustrated because they had to take
Mhm.
time out of their day to ask me when we're coming, right? It's that same experience. So you want to meet the customer where they're at and what society is right now. Whether I like Facebook, whether I like everything that's out there, that's irrelevant because the numbers say and the actions say that that's where everybody's at, right? Just like watching content on YouTube, like everybody responds to negative content instead of positive, but we are positive people, right?
Mhm.
But all that started, like, if you really think back, and I'm going to hit Pete with this, with the reality with TV, like with like Jersey Shore stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody got into this train wreck thing. So whether I like it or not, I can see why YouTube guys are making that type of content. I'm not going to put out negative content. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, the consumer, you got to meet them where they're at, right? And if
Mhm.
they're on Facebook right now, I need to be doing Facebook ads. If they're or I need to be sending them Facebook messages saying, hey, your project is scheduled, right? So that's the thing that you got to figure out, and it's tough, man. Like, unless you've been in the game a while, you've got to get Aaron or somebody like Aaron to help build those integrations and understand how that stuff works. Because if not, you're going to be left behind, I think, guys that don't get into the tech space and really start to understand it, because that's how they buy right now, but they refuse to change their business to model what the customer is doing right now.
Yeah, and to add to that, you absolutely and unfortunately, last year kind of drove that big change, but into the tech world became like this would be nice that we did too. Like, this is the only way I can do business because it's getting scary. I want to add something and John, I think it's awesome that you've kind of developed such great tools in putting these pieces all in place because obviously, I'm sure and we're behind the scenes, and I know it started somewhere, right? It started small, and then you built up because everything became small, right? So, all right, we're doing really good here. What's this other that like customer communication? I know we need to do this. I'm going to start somewhere first, and then I'm going to kind of build off of that and make it better. And I wanted to kind of all the contractors that are watching this is that it doesn't have to be all that right yet, because that can get really big really quickly. And it's one of those dream things like, oh man, I want to do Facebook, I want to do Instagram, I want to do all this. It's gonna be so great. I'm sending text message out, all that's all automated. And I get a lot of that. Like, I want to do all this stuff. It's like, all right, time out. What are you doing now? Oh, we're not doing anything now. Great. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, right? And what I help keep them in mind is that, listen, if you are ahead of it, that's the only process right now. When I move, say in an automated send, when I move a status to this, I'm going to send an email out to my customer. That's it. I'm going to send an email out to my customer, and then they get the email, and you've stopped the reactionary phone call, because and very simple. You send that same email to your sales rep. Sales rep is a good sales rep. He becomes a hero immediately, because now he's calling the customer and saying, hey, know if you just got that email, just want to see if you have any questions. That's it. Simple stuff that can make a huge difference, because like I said, majority of the time it's communication that breaks things down. I don't want a customer calling me and say, hey, what's going on? I want to be the one who's calling them, because now that most customers are okay with changing start dates of projects, and they're okay. Most of them are, if you communicate that to them and before it's happening. And that the things that are out of your control, like materials and scheduling, those are out of your control. You communicate that to your customer, they're going to be pretty forgiving because they chose you, right? They chose you to do your work. And if you can continue that communication, just staying ahead of it, and it's impossible for one person to keep doing this. Taking the phone, sending emails. So let's automate that. That's the first thing. Just automate it. And small little things. 5 emails a customer can get, 5 emails, even 4, and feel they feel heard. They feel that we see them. That's all they are. It's like the company saying, "Hey, I see you. This is what's happening." Or, "Hey, we've got everything else done. Now we're just waiting for your project's date. Here's an email of, this is what we need you to do so we can prepare for your projects tomorrow. We're really excited." And then adding that, then you add these other pieces on as you go. Because one, that a lot of these guys, they don't have the ability to invest in a lot of this stuff. But guess what? They start with this one little thing. In my experience is they will get there if they can, because that customer is not going anywhere, right? They're going to pay faster because they felt taken care of. Because this is, a lot of times I talk to them, it's like, this is a big process for a homeowner. Like they're like, "I've never had a roof put on. I've never had this work done before. I have no idea what to expect." Now, I was like, "Great, that's what I'm here for. I'm your expert, and I'm also your buddy. I'm a guy in your corner. I'm gonna walk you through this whole process." So then you get back, I next door got a new roof. I get the mechanics now, but man, my guy, this company, man, they're so communicative. I'm gonna tell everybody because I trusted them through the entire process, because I know I have no idea what's going on here, but I felt taken care of because it is their most, precious investment of their entire life that they're trusting you to do. It should be very white glove situation here. And only your project manager, salesman can provide that, but you got to help them out. Yeah. And the system can do those type of things. And it doesn't have to be this massive campaign at first. It can be so simple that it reaches more people, and they feel, and it lets your guys not have to worry about and it feel like it's their fault that they haven't, or putting it all on them, because it would be, right? If I'm putting it all on the sales guy, they're not going to be able to do as much work that they want to, because they're spending all day calling all their customers, or most likely getting that reactionary call and spin. I actually have a client, I talked to a guy up in Massachusetts, and that flat out said, "Yeah, most of my day is filled with customers calling me, and I have to tell them, oh, this is what we're waiting on." Hey, this round is like, let's flip that. It's a really quick flip. We don't even have to build out a process, guys. Yeah. At times we don't have to build out. We just say, okay, move it here to here. That's all I need you to do. We can automate it, if you will, but let's get these customers communicated to first, because that's where you're plugging the holes in the company real quick. Just let's put some tarps around some of this stuff by helping the communication really quick. Then let's build out that process a little bit. Those are things that very important. And because when that faucet dries up and customers don't want to come to you, you have a much bigger problem than a good process and good production.
And building on that, Aaron, too, just back with it real. So you said a couple things there that really got my mind turning with it. That's where we started at. We started with just an email, right? And then we saw the reaction, like, okay, now I'm cutting my call volume down. Because at the end of the day, like we 15 years ago, it was all about phone calls and people answering the phone and making phone calls out, phone calls in. I went to a no call initiative, right? I want to make, after the sales are made, I'd like to have 0 phone calls. Right. And it sounds stupid, like it's anti-customer service, but actually it's pro-customer service, because you're proactively giving them the information that people are seeking and craving, right? That they have 0, so it creates other issues there, right? Because we haven't called them, right? So like after the job's done, we're trying to get like the certificate of completion signed or something. And we're calling them because they won't answer the phone, because we trained them in our process. We're going to send you an email. So then you got to learn to automate other things. But when you break it down to, my thought with it was a 0 call initiative. Like, I don't want the customer to call us, and I don't want to have to call the customer, right? Not because I don't want to talk to them, but I think if your customer service is good enough, like your sales guy did a great job, right?
Yeah.
They'll call their sales guy, right?
Mhm.
There'll be calls there. Hey, listen, I'm just checking in on things. But they typically will call and say, hey, I just got this email that said you guys are still about a week or two out. Like, that's the calls that they're getting. They're not getting the mean or hateful call. It's like, hey, listen, we're going out of town for Thanksgiving the whole week. Could you go ahead and schedule it the week after, the week after that? Like, we're getting the communication call back, right? Or they're
Mhm.
sending an email back. So meeting the customer where they're at, and not all customers are there. So we
Mhm.
are doing calls, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you get an over 60 crowd right now, they still pick up the phone and want to talk to you, and that's great. And that's who I want to pick up the phone and call. But my zero call initiative is what built that after I started that small automation of emails, just leaving the system, and the homeowner going, great, thanks, with the update. And we're like, that's awesome. And
Mhm.
so now it's, once we find out what their love language is, now we're sending that either in a different platform. So
Mhm.
it'll take customer service to a new level, but just with an email and maybe a text message automation, just those two things would
Yeah.
change the whole dynamic of your business.
And I was going to add that makes in that system what's really cool is that phone call becomes a wow factor versus a necessity, right? If I get a phone call, I've got all this. Now I'm just, and it can be any sales rep. I mean, a new guy that's really bad at doing that, because they are. Not everybody's great at doing that. The guys that are doing, at least you have a baseline communication tool. So if that baseline is still good, you're good. Whereas the other guys the value goes up when, like, hey, customers seem to do this more if you do. I mean, it's leave it up to the sales guy or the customer or the whoever's working the project manager. Like, it'd be awesome if you did this. That's their thing. It becomes a wow factor versus, oh my God, I forgot to call that guy. What am I going to do? I've got 8 calls that everybody's yelling at me. I'm shutting down. I'm turning off the lights. I'm going to bed. Right? That they're not going to deal with it. That's it. And so that's so great. Is like baseline is they're getting communicated to in a lot of different ways. And then sales guy calls me because he's awesome. That's a great place to be for a sales guy. Not because he's saying, "Oh, I forgot to call you." Man, that's great. And that's great knowledge for any contractor out there. Is like, it's not going to have to be, you're not going to be there right now, but it's possible to get there, and you just go one nugget at a time.
Cool. I mean, I think we could talk about this topic all day.
That's great.
But just to kind of bring it back, and a last question for you guys, and I'll give you guys both an opportunity to answer this. But let's say I'm a traditional contractor. Maybe I'm still a pen and paper guy. Like we did a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and we asked the question, how are you guys quoting? And 52% of the people on the webinar said with pen and paper. Like, I'm actually writing a quote. And that blew my mind. Like, still half the people that were listening to our webinar were quoting, but with a pen and paper, that still weren't using a platform to do that. So my question for you guys is, if I'm not a guy using tech, what tech do you guys see? Obviously CRM, right? We talked about that, the importance of that as kind of like your cornerstone piece. What other pieces of tech do you guys think are a must have? Like, if I just had to pick kind of like a bare bones tech stack, what are the pieces that are really going to make a huge impact, going to make a difference, and really kind of set me up for success? And John, I'll let you jump in there first and just say, like, I mean, obviously you guys have employed a lot, but when you started out, what were the pieces that you said, like, these are must haves, like these are things that are going to make, immediate impacts on our business?
So the first 3 techs that we really did was Job Nimbus, Company Cam, and Pulse M, actually. So it was, and I was, and then we went to Text Magic. So those are the 4 that I really started with. So, like, I was able to build my process inside of Job Nimbus with automated emails, automated that type of stuff. And then I was still using Excel spreadsheet for all my guys to get their pricing. So, I mean, you kind of mentioned that. So now having an online software capabilities, no matter what you use, whether you use the Roofr proposal tool or whatever it is, like, that piece to me is probably the next step that you have to have, because now you can control pricing, right? even if I've got my CRM and I've got my company cams and I've got my review management tool, right? Those are very, very important as your core. But when you think about how I'm going to be making money and being profitable, you know, a proposal tool is probably the number two thing that you got to get in there, because now I can control what the pricing is. I can see it. My guys aren't just out there willy nilly. Hey, go do it for $400 a square, $600 a square, and they're writing stuff out. Now they have to rely on a system and process that I control. Right, I control the pricing, and we saw that our bottom line just, I don't say skyrocketed, but it doubled. I mean, you go from 4 to 5% to 8 to 10%. That's a lot by just implementing a proposal tool that you have full control over. And when you think about it this way, like I wrote down a note a minute ago, I call it the Bill Belichick approach. Right, you just have a system and a process. I just need to put a player in. Right, so we have a system and a process. I got to put a player. I need talent along the way to make it better, but I can still win. You know, I can still go 10-6 or 12-4 every year with my process, whether I've got the top talent or not. You know, and so that's the whole purpose of that. Is like, I don't recruit inside of the industry at all. Like every one of my sales guys I currently have never sold a roof before they came here, and I plug and play them. I train them for 3 or 4 weeks at the beginning of the year, and because of the proposal tools, because of the stuff that we have, they're successful. I mean, all my guys will be over $1 million this year, right? And I've got 4 brand new guys that have never been in the industry and have no idea how to sell a roof. Plus my returning guys. So the process is give them the tools that they need to make their job easy, and then give them the ability to build the relationship. That's the most important part of this, is being able to talk to the customer and build the relationship. So using tools like Roofr, right? You don't have to measure the roof anymore, right? We order a report with every job, and then our guys just show up, and it's already in their estimate. Like they build the estimate the night before. All they do is import all those numbers. Boom, there's your price, right? So they don't have to think about that stuff anymore. So when you take out that hour of work and make it 3 minutes, they got another 57 minutes to talk to their customer instead of worrying about, ooh, I've got to get this number right. I got to make sure all that stuff's there. Does it work every time? No. That's why it's a process, and it's a game of numbers, right? They might miss a number. They might have missed this one little thing. But overall, when you bring the bottom line up from 4 to 5% up to 8, 9, 10, 12, because you have a process, to me, that's the most important number. And then you can get back to what really matters. When you have the right tech stack, if there's any if there's any advice that I can give to entrepreneurs or even just roofing contractors that get into business, the hardest part of your job is managing people and personality. That's the hardest part. You make it hard on yourself by not having a process, right? Because now you have to deal with the process and manage the people and personalities. Personalities is the hardest thing. So if I could get to the point to where all I'm doing is managing personalities because the process is working, I mean, your life changes. I mean, your freedom changes. The way that people interact with you changes. Like your whole team feels safe to come and talk to you about things, right? Because I don't have to micromanage and say you did this wrong or this wrong. I read a book years ago, but it's a 1 Minute Manager. It's a really good book just to keep some quick ways of how to manage people. But the one thing that I pulled out of it was you look for things that they're doing right, right? Don't accidentally always talk about the things that they're doing wrong. So like I make it a point to find the things that they're doing right on. So when it comes time to talk about the things that they're doing wrong, it's now constructive criticism. It's not micromanaging, right? So I make that point, man, you're doing a really good job with X, Y, and Z. And then I leave it at that. I don't go into, but I need you to do X, Y, and Z as well. Because as soon as I use the word but, it negates everything, behind it, right? So I use the word and instead of but. So that's one thing that you got to learn. But if you're able to put the right tech stack in place, and it's incremental, right? Start with the CRMs and then grab the company cam, using Roofr to get your measurements. And even with Roofr, the reason why I like it is more accurate. And people are like, well, it came back and they didn't give me the pitch on it. I'm like, yeah, that's the beauty of it. Like, you can go in there and edit it and field verify everything. So we're way more accurate on our measurements because I field verify. I'm not relying on other sources that say this is the pitch and the measurement. Like, if it's wrong, all my guys would do now is verify pitch and 2 or 3 measurements, and they go right into the report and change it. And now we're super duper accurate because, the baseline of it's there. All the reporting mechanisms are going to be very, very similar, right? Like if I order reports across the board, they're all going to be similar. But when I can get in there and get detailed and uber accurate and just train the staff, so now I'm training my guys on that, like how to get the pitch and how to get 2 measurements. They don't have to measure the roof, right? All they got to do is go in there and change this one eve and this pitch is a 512 instead of a 412. I mean, 1 square incremental difference on every job, and you're doing 600 jobs a year. That's 600 squares that you would lose in either overbidding or underbidding, right? So those are the things there. So tech stack, keep it simple to get started. You got to have a place to store and collect data. That's the first thing that you got to do. Then whether that you use company cams and those types of things. Like company cam works on our process because I don't have the project managers or the CEMs, as we call them, customer experience managers. They're not in job Nimbus. So I don't need them there. So I can save some money and some training, if you will. All they need to know is take a picture, scan a document, put it in the system, right? And that's what I need them to actually do for the admin portion. So, but the proposal tools, in my mind, changed the game. I've been trying to do it for 10 or 15 years, and I built out these elaborate Excel spreadsheets to where you punch in a number and it gives you a price. Because I didn't want my sales guys to have to be out there. Well, one is I protected my pricing and my profitability, right? I wasn't training my competition, right? I wasn't training my sales guy to leave to go start up his business because he had no idea how the computation worked. Right, all he knew was he put in 25 squares and all the E footage and all this stuff, and it gave him a price of 10,000. Right, he didn't know what all the algorithm was, and so you're able to control that, and then you'll have better, happier sales people because you can pay them more. Right, they'll stay longer because they have great systems and processes. And like one thing that I mean, and I'll say it here, it's nothing that I want to like brag about, but I do know this that most of my sales guys, if they would leave our system and go to another one, they would probably fail because we do so much of the work for them. Right now, they'll win and the report, the building, and all that stuff too. But when guys have recruited out of our system, and they're like, "Oh man, he's a $2 million salesman." Well, he goes over there and sells 700,000 because he doesn't have the support in the system behind him. And then that other owner gets frustrated, like, "Well, I don't understand. Like, you're one of the top guys." Well, it's because they're implanted into the system, and they have a proposal tool. They have all the measurements done. The old school way of doing things, our guys don't fit in that system at all. Like if they leave us, they find a new industry, and I don't have any turnover. I mean, well, I have some occasionally. Like, I mean, in three years, I've lost 2 guys. You know what I mean? I mean, in my mind, compared to what it was 10 years ago, that's fantastic. And we just keep adding to the team, and I've lost 2 guys, and one we got rid of, and one left to go to competitor, and then he came back. So because the system failed, right? He's like, the grass isn't greener on the other side, right? So yeah, that would be my thing. Start simple, get with Aaron, get with guys like that can help you whiteboard that process, right? Because you got to know from beginning to end. Right, from capturing a lead to converting that lead to building the job to controlling the whole admin part of this. Like there's a 4-step process. And the cool part about being in the roofing industry is guys can just come in with a tool bag and a hammer and start knocking on doors and putting on roofs. I mean, it is an entrepreneurial spirit. But the reason why 96% of the guys fail in the first 3 to 5 years is because they don't set a foundation to start with. You got to have that structure and that foundation. Because the guy that comes in as a great craftsman, right? I mean, he starts getting word of mouth, and he starts at 10 roofs a year to 20 to 50 to 100. Once he gets to 100, he's a great craftsman, but he doesn't know how to run a business, he doesn't know how to. I mean, and that's one of the major types of guys, and they go out of business in 5 years because he tries to scale and he doesn't train, he doesn't have a process, he doesn't have a way to check people. And then you got the guy that was a begrudging salesman that thought that he could do it better, and then he leaves, right? And then he starts up his own business, and all he's focused on is making money and pulling money out of the business and buying boats and everything else that he can think of, right?
Right.
And then it goes downhill because he doesn't know how to manage money and invest in people. So that's usually your two types of entry. And then you got guys who want to do the business and do the business right and pay the people well. Listen, guys, I'm happy that the process that we built, my partner Ty and I, which I mean, it was his family name for 42 years in Pittsburgh now, right? That we've got two sales guys that will make more than us this year. And people just get like, why would you want to do that? Because I'm still making a little piece of the pie on every job. I want them to go out there and take care of their family because they're trading their time for time now instead of time for money, right? So now it's changed their life as well. So I'm glad to write those checks. You know, that makes me feel great. $10,000 commission, boom, here you go. Like, enjoy it, dude. Like, you know, go spend time with the family.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, what are your thoughts, just real quick? What do you want to add as far as you know, a tech stack, and what do you think are the essential pieces? I mean, I think we even touched on it a little bit in the conversation we had last night. You know, but like, what would you see as like the must-have pieces?
Right. I think because there's two different kinds of, like, I'm noticing in the country, it's like you have your storm guys and you have your retail guys, and so that can differ a little bit. But I think one CRM, a place, I'll echo John there, a place to put the data. That's definitely first thing. And most of the CRMs, you can actually just have that. Most of the CRMs, you can just have that for now to learn and put that in there. Put data in there. There's automations that you can really beef up some of these systems to allow you to put an estimate in, because that is super important. The faster you get to managing that the money and where you can see that, the better. Even it's super simple. Like in the stormers, all they're going to have is an RCV, really. So find a place, an estimate in the software, put that in there, and that's it for now. You know, those are things that you can start simply. It's the outside proposal systems are absolutely something that is really, really helpful, really, really great. I mean, in the very beginning, maybe it's a little bit more. It's kind of a decision of, should I have a CRM or do I just want these to sign contracts faster and give them a really nice layout? It kind of is like how I look into what John was saying is that to the guy who goes out there, a good craftsman, right? And it's in the CRM, you see your process. Listen, contractors have great processes. They're great people for process. That's what I guess I mean. Great people, because guess what? You put a roof on the same way every single time. You have nuances, but they're good at following tasks. Like, that's how they learn it. You know, that's how people learn things. They get on there. This is a way to do this. So we take that and throw into a system. It's like, see, you already knew how to follow a process. So you just don't, you're just putting it so different between this, that you think it's completely different over. It's not. It's just a process. Now we're just going to get you in a system, just like you have a system on the roof. Let's put it in a digital situation. So having a CRM, I think, is number one. Having, like outside camera photo program like Company Cam, mainly because some CRMs just don't work for the company. They can choose one and not at the other. The hardest thing to get, if you need to move, if you need to go to a different CRM, because it happens, the hardest thing to move is documents and pictures. And so everything else, all the other data, if you need to push out, you can, but documents and pictures are really tough. So utilizing a different system like Company Cam, and I don't know what people are going to think that I'm saying this, but this is what I'm saying. Like Company Cam is being able to have that data outside to be able to make those decisions. If you have to choose one, wisely, reach out to me. I help with I'd help with that and kind of looking at your process and your system that you have now, what'll be the best fit for you. I kind of work through that and so that you can, my goal is once you find one, and John knows, once you find a system, I want you to stay there. So if the way to stay there is to make sure it's malleable, you can move the process around, you can actually create your environment within the system, you're not going to go anywhere. If anything, you'll get too big for the system. That's possible, but majority of the time I haven't seen it yet. I mean, and we're talking like an international company. Some of these, they'd have to be gigantic and it wouldn't make sense to stay in a system. But ideally, CRM, the photo is, if that's all you have right now, that's all that you can do, great. We can work off of that. Data catcher and getting your documents and pictures in a place where they can be in both places to integrate. Then you would start looking, I think, at proposals and any kind of measurement tool is great. And in like the storm markets, a canvassing program would probably really good. Mainly to what you said, John, I can start with my sales guys or my knockers in just the canvassing app, just going out and getting to the inspection. And then once it gets there, it pushes in the CRM. Now they're not in that stack there. What makes it really cool is that most of them will pull in the actual address and everything in there. So if that's happening, guess what they're not doing? They're not typing out the address. They're gathering it from the system. They're verifying it. And then when it pushes to their CRM, it's not, they don't have to change anything. And that's a big thing, right? That duplicate information. If using those kind of apps, they never actually have to, unless it's not available, very, very rarely, you have to put in their address, their name, all that. It just pops over. So now it's in my CRM. I literally had one click in this situation, maybe two. And it's there. And we have good data going in there. Finding that as you, like, it's not needed, like it's not, you need to have that. But it's probably that next for lack of duplication, because that's where you get the less adoption rate, right, John? It's like, if I have to do this, I have to write this down or type this in 3 or 4 times, I might as well keep putting it on my spreadsheet. I might as well do it here because at least, I'm in one place. So trying to find that little circular, canvassing app, CRM, photos, take your photos, come back in there. As far as proposals go, if that's what the only paperwork that you have out there right now is your contracts, okay. You know what I mean? That's fine. We can work with that. The practice of getting into a system is so key. Once they have that practice, that foundational, they're doing their part, and they're learning handoffs or systematically versus handing in a folder. Once they're there, sky's the limit. The ideal is, it's a little bit challenging and difficult here to put it into a digitized process. But if I do that hard work now we get the opportunity, and like John's done really, really well, is this is uncomfortable first. Now I'm going to make it easy for you. Now that we're here, we've made it part of the practice. It's gone 75 days. They get that they have to get in, they're finding the benefit there. It's hard because it's change, but then the next level is I can start making it, putting bells and whistles. I can make it awesome. And so they're in that's the only time they're in that really kind of difficult space. And now it's getting easier and easier and easier, and they're having more value. They're selling more. All that stuff starts happening because they just had to make that big leap into a system. So CRM first, and an outside camera program like Company Cam, and then from there you're at least starting that data transfer and a fast and easy. And then we're starting to remove the paper and adding like just mirroring things like, this is your proposal that you usually do because it's on Word. Did you know you can do you can do this digitally? That makes it really, really quick. That's something that we need. This first, we need the CRM first. You need to know that, so that when we do this, you understand the need for that data coming over here. We've done it hard. Now we're going to make it a little bit more like easier for you and simpler for you. And you're not having you're not learning another system, and you're enhancing the system that you have.
All right. Well, I appreciate all the insight here today, guys. I think that, just a wealth of knowledge, obviously from both of you guys. And it's been great insight, I think, into what's made you guys successful, and what you guys have done to help other companies become successful. And, I think just, some great starting points for someone who may be trying to get into using tech more. Uh, and I think the biggest thing is just, using this to kind of standardize what you're doing and to, really be able to scale. Like all of us want to have a bigger business, right? Like we all want to, grow our business. Hopefully that's why we're in business, right?
Hmm.
So, and all of this is great insight into how you can do that, why you use these tools to do that. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know you guys are both busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time out of the day to talk with us and run through this stuff.
No problem, man. Appreciate it. It's been
All
fun.
right.
Thanks, Pete. This is awesome.
All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.